All right, gentlemen, fire up, because this month's masterclass is all about how to get women to say yes. Listen, there's no more beautiful word in the English language than the word yes, spoken by a beautiful woman you're attracted to. And listen, guys, I'm raising my hand. I know how hard it is to hear no time and again from women. Well, something's got to give, something's got to change. And this coming Wednesday, the 24th of April, 2024 is when it all changes. That masterclass will start at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for you. And that means if you're listening to this particular podcast within just a few days of its initial release, you can go grab your ticket at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. How to get women to say yes. Coming up this coming Wednesday, it's the latest masterclass from X and Y Communications. Join me and a bunch of like-minded men for this all-important event that's going to revolutionize how women respond to you, and you'll start seeing powerful responses from women that are affirmative responses, of course, from that day forward. It's all there for you in this month's masterclass. Make Women Say Yes, coming to you this coming Wednesday. Grab your ticket now at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Okay, gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scott McKay. I will be your host as always. And listen up, gentlemen. Today we have a topic in store for you, which is definitely going to be a whole lot of fun. And I am suspecting that, from what I know about our guest co-host today, it's going to, take some unexpected twists and turns, because Cyndi Olin and I always have a whole lot of fun together. Before we jump into that, I want to remind you guys to check all the social media sites out. I'm at Scott McKay on both Twitter and YouTube. Well, let's make it a trifecta. Also on TikTok, at Real Scott McKay on Instagram. And the website is always mountaintoppodcast.com. And listen, gentlemen, the Facebook group is a whole lot of fun. If you want something different than the typical men's group on Facebook, definitely check out the Mountaintop Summit. Anyway, enough about me. Cyndi, welcome back to the show for about the 47th time. We love you.
I love you too. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Always being on your show. And I'm excited about our topic today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still kind of bemoaning the demise of Clubhouse, because we used to have so much fun hosting a room together.
We really did.
Yeah,
we really did.
But one of the things we never talked about there, which we decided at the end of the episode we recorded last time, which I don't know, probably was about 8-10 months ago, if I'm guessing, was the bad sex survival guide. And, you know, Woody Allen is somewhat infamous for his quote that there's no such thing as bad sex. And I think a lot of guys, for better or worse, would appreciate that quote. If, after all, you've gotten her naked and you've had sex, hey, you know, how bad could it possibly have been? I could think of a lot of ways it could really be bad. Some of them are actually obvious to me. But then again, we're talking about Woody Allen here, who's got probably not a lot going for him in the sexiness department and a little bit of a sordid history of his own. So what say you?
Isn't that true?
Yeah, it kind of is.
I probably wouldn't be taking Woody Allen's advice around bad sex.
You probably wouldn't be taking Woody Allen either.
No, heck no. All I could think
makes
about
both of us.
were those glasses that he wears, those infamous glasses, those horn-rimmed glasses that, anyway.
Yeah, what was Mia Farrow thinking, you know?
Yeah, no thank you, Woody. But yeah, I mean, bad sex. And even, you know, I feel like too, you know, a lot of times, especially women, you know, because I work with a lot of women, as you know, they're they get a little strategic about when to have sex, and they make it this build up. And if it doesn't go the right way, it's like something was taken from them.
Oh, that's really interesting. Describe a little bit more. Is this like there's this sort of fairy tale fantasy, and if it doesn't go exactly like she hopes it will, then the whole house of cards falls apart? Or what are you getting at there?
Well, I mean, that could be part of it. And, or if, they're worried about making him happy so that he'll want to come back for more. And if for some reason, they have sex, it's like, there's this big buildup. It's like being on a roller coaster at the very top and waiting for the going down and going through all the loop-de-loops. So if, they make a lot of meaning out of it. So if he doesn't call back within a certain time, or he doesn't call back at all
after the sex, they'll feel bad about themselves. Like, oh, all he wanted was sex and he got that from me, which couldn't be further from the truth. Ever? Or just sometimes?
Sometimes. That's not true ever. Right?
Right. So what happens there if the guy doesn't call back relatively soon after the first time they have sex? What's the woman thinking, and what's really going on there in your opinion?
Well, it could be a variety of different things, but the woman could be thinking, depending, if she's in an empowered state, she might be thinking, well, we had sex, I had fun, great, I'm whole. Next, I'm going to continue to move on and enjoy my life.
Yeah. Speaking of whole, it's like Courtney Love. They get what they want and they never want it again. Right?
Right.
Go on, take everything. Take everything. Right? Exactly that kind of sentiment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you flip it and you go, okay, first of all, people want sex also for connection. And it's fun, it's pleasurable, and it gets to be that.
Supposed to be.
Yeah. And if the woman's actually focused on it bringing her pleasure, like putting the oxygen mask on her face first, then she's going to be in the moment with it and have a really fun time and not be so concerned about whether or not he calls back or reaches out.
Okay, so let's level set here. Let's get a few of the easy buttons out of the way here.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you take somebody's clothes off, you get naked with them, and you're absolutely repulsed immediately by their nakedness, that would be bad sex, right?
That would be bad sex.
Right. If the man has such a premature ejaculation problem that he lasts 2 seconds from her flashing her boobies, that wouldn't be the best experience ever. Although the woman could pretty much pat herself on the back and think she's hot stuff if that happens, theoretically. But still not probably going to live up to the build-up, as you called it, that women would hope for there. STDs, pregnancies, those were probably not the best sex, although that would be in the aftermath, right? But
exactly.
Those were the check boxes I wanted to get out of the way early before we talk about how we're satisfying each other or not. But go ahead.
Well, and then he can't seem to get it up. He can't get hard.
Oh, yeah. Stage fright.
Stage fright.
Or a legitimate issue.
Right.
Yeah. Do women blame themselves for that?
Yes.
Rhetorical question, I know.
Yes.
Everybody feels bad about that, right?
Everybody does. He feels embarrassed, right?
Yeah, he feels impotent. He feels like less than a man. She feels like she wasn't hot enough. She wasn't sexy enough, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Anytime there's guilt or shame around what you're trying to do or attempting to do sexually, it is not going to be great sex, period. So sometimes people have lots of, hang-ups or guilt around it. And that's really an interesting concept, which I want to get to, because sometimes the forbidden sex or we shouldn't be doing this sex is the hottest and best sex.
That
Although
could be
if we're
super hot.
Oh, yeah. But if we're cheating on someone, maybe that's mixed with guilt and shame, and rightly so. So there's this weird cocktail of this is really terrible and really hot at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's gonna, I think the bad's gonna outweigh the good there ultimately, especially after the get off happens.
There's also the religious guilt.
Oh, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big one for people.
And it's also very hot when, we shouldn't be doing this, but we seduced each other.
What was that movie? Oh, I can't think of it.
Pretty much all of them, Cyndi.
Yeah, all of them. I know.
Yeah.
Just pick one.
Footloose.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. She's this little Christian girl and he's just way too hot for school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I want to get back to what you were saying because, man, we are flying at light speed through all the possibilities here.
Right.
You were talking about women really wanting to pleasure a man and make sure that he is sexually satisfied. For men who have even a modicum of sexual experience, Cyndi, the same holds true for us. Let's see what I did there. I put myself in the first person plural there. Good grief. I hope I have some experience if I've been running the show for 17 years. I know. It's subtle, isn't it? These situations where men are having sex with a woman for the first time, if he knows what he's doing, he is going to focus on her pleasure. And as I have polled men over the years who kind of know what they're doing in bed, almost all of us agree, hey, look, if she is really enjoying this, if she's cooing and screaming and moaning and saying how much she loves it and she wants more and she's giggling and squirting, it really is extremely satisfying for us as men to know that she really wanted this and enjoyed it and will likely come back for more. And if we ever get to that holy grail position where she becomes our little doe-eyed sex princess and has completely submitted and will do anything for us, we do pat ourselves on the back and say to ourselves, hey, we must be pretty good. Especially if she was feisty and even perhaps a little bit feminist before then. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. I'm talking about something primal here. But we as men love that. It makes us hornier and feel more sexual towards her. And then what typically happens is when we are capable and succeed at satisfying a woman, it's amazing how often the woman really is all about satisfying us too. But I don't know. I think men feel as if they need to take the lead before that's even going to be the woman's attitude, if you can use such a sanitary term for sexual activity, towards going for it. Because we kind of feel in the back of our minds that women give it up, women put it out, and men, score, and men get lucky. So there's this general attitude, especially from the late 20th century on, that women just don't really like sex. They're not even really looking forward to it. It's kind of a duty or something they give up. And it could be from angry women saying all sex is rape and the Me Too movement and the fallout from that. But I would be hard pressed to believe a whole lot of guys listening to this are thinking every time a woman is anticipating sex, the first thing she's anticipating is pleasuring us. So how do we help those guys who may feel like that suspend their disbelief?
Well, I mean, I feel like with sex, it's also a process. The more you do it, the more you're familiar with one another, right?
True.
And so you're able to be more open and communicative about what you want and need. But truthfully, instead of having the attitude of, as you were sharing before, of taking something, because that's what's programmed into us. Instead, she's receiving pleasure from you.
Right. But you were saying that women have this buildup towards first sex and their thoughts are towards pleasing the man.
Right. And they do want to please the man. And if the man actually communicates and says, hey, this is about you, I want to please you, then and hopefully she could just show up and relax into it and enjoy. without putting all that pressure on herself. Because when we do that, then the sex ends up being really awkward.
Yes, pressure to perform is awkward.
Yes. So that's usually the problem in early sex. There's this unspoken expectation around it. And especially if you're having sex, like, you go out on a first date and you happen to go there with someone really early on, there can be all these unsaid expectations around things. Or not, because then it could just be really hot and forbidden and really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it could go all sorts of different ways if you think about it. As a matter of fact, the direction you're taking this conversation is opening up a whole lot of new windows in terms of things we could discuss. I mean, for sure. So it's bad sex if it's selfish sex. We can agree on that, right? If I'm just trying to get off and get laid and she's my masturbation tool, that would be very bad sex for the woman. And I don't think I've really ever encountered a woman who views sex that way, unless she's really jaded and I don't know. It would seem almost soulless for a woman to approach sex like that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Although I had a gentleman that I work with, a client of mine, that was propositioned online, and from a woman like, you're really sexy. Would you want to hook up tonight?
Well, I am going to admit it happens.
It does happen.
But I'm not sure what the woman's actual mindset is when she enters into a tryst with a man saying, hey, look, I'm a woman. I have needs. I need to get off. You're the guy. I happen to believe personally that a man has to at least show some skill at connecting with her, relating to her, appreciating her at some level other than her being a life support system for a vagina before she's going to have that sex she's even looking forward to that much. I do think there are horny women out there who want to get off. And I mean, I'm going to raise my hand and say, I'll admit to a couple of times where I asked myself afterwards, have I just been used for sex by a woman? And, the conclusion is, nah, there's no way.
Did you walk away with your finger on your lip going, am I okay here? Did I just get used? Oh, no.
No, I was fine. I lived. Yeah. I wasn't psychologically damaged by it or anything, but I suspect it has happened. And I think a lot of guys would agree. Yeah, it does happen, but I don't think women are going around trying to get laid. And see now, Cyndi, this is where like when the men go in their own way say, oh, well, women can have sex with whoever they want. They can rack up their body count. And, meanwhile, only 5% of the chads are banging all the chicks. This is just a function of men not understanding how women view sex in general. I mean, it's just a completely different mindset. So,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so you have most women thinking, okay, the sex is going to be as a direct result of us having connected. So if we have that sex and there's no connection or it's disappointing or it doesn't go the way she was fantasizing about it, she's going to be disappointed and that will be chalked up as bad sex. Now the guy's thinking, okay, I get this woman naked and she lays there like a cold fish or et cetera, et cetera. She doesn't like to do oral. She thinks blowjobs are disgusting. Well, the sex is going to be worse than it could have been. But I do think most guys, if they get her naked and she looks good to them, there's no such thing as bad sex from there, even if she does just lay there. But I have talked to men who didn't know what to do once they got a woman naked in their bedroom or wherever, and physically she disappointed him. They didn't know how to back down from the sex they were going to have without really hurting her feelings or something like that. And I mean, this happens. So, I mean, you could argue that wasn't sex at all, bad or otherwise, but it was certainly a bad feeling associated with a potentially sexual experience, right? So those are things that can happen in context.
Agreed. I just said, turn off the lights instead.
Oh my goodness. How gratuitous though. If you don't think she's sexy, why would you have sex with her? I mean, turn off the lights and just go for it. Oh man. That's one thing I am really proud of, by the way. I don't know about you and your marriage or whether you even want to talk about it, but my wife and I have been married for 18 years. We're both in our 50s and we still have sex with the lights on and in broad daylight.
So do we.
Oh, yeah.
So do we.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be doing pretty well for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to this idea of a couple who's dating, they're relating, they're looking to get a little relationship-y. So one or both of them, and this isn't necessarily gender specific, although I'd say it's typically a female priority versus a male priority, that we're going to hold off on the sex for a while so that it's really special when it happens. And then anytime you build this hype, there's a lot of margin for error when it comes to living up to that hype. Now, you also compare that to a one-night stand experience. So if there's a one-night stand experience, you know, the guy and the gal could theoretically connect and really enjoy each other's company and like each other above and beyond being horny. But I just don't think there's going to be that much of a sexpectation, as it were, right? In terms of we're going to do this right the first time. It's going to be cataclysmic. It's going to go perfectly, because I don't think there's a lot emotionally invested there. And indeed, if the sex is cataclysmic and great the first time, well, that's a plus. That's probably going to be a lifetime memory there. But indeed, the longer the hype gets built up, the larger the margin of error for disappointment. And you see couples who are very deeply faith-based who wait until marriage to have sex, and then the wedding night is this huge pressure-packed production, and they say literally to themselves, my God, what have we done, after the first night of their marriage, and the consummation of that marriage doesn't go the way either of them imagined it in their wildest, fantastic fantasies that they had planned. Bad. True. Yeah. Where's the balance there?
You bring up a really good point.
I think so.
I feel like you got to take the pressure off yourselves.
How do you do that, Cyndi?
Talking about it. Like taking the big question mark out of Pandora's box, and even talking about all the angles of what if we hate this? What if we love it? What if we just have fun with it and we don't put that pressure on ourselves, because we know we're committed to each other and we love one another anyway.
Well, that would be idealistic.
It might be a little. But if you communicate about, let's just say the couple that is waiting until their wedding night for sex, then it would benefit them to have conversations about it, normalize it, because anything you talk about or do for a little bit, like riding a bike for a while, it feels familiar. It feels like second nature. Also, you have some fun practicing, and maybe you don't go all the way, but you have some fun creating pressure, or not pressure.
Sexual tension.
Attention, yes. Creating the tension together. And you trust yourself. You feel fully safe, not only in the connection. Then I feel like no matter what happens, it's going to be great, because it can only get better from there.
Well, let's be honest here. Speaking with the voice of experience, you basically just described to a T the Christian school experience for both boys and girls and young men and women. Right. It's technical virginity. We're going to play around but not go all the way. And no one wants to admit to it out loud, which makes all of those experiences that happen behind closed doors all that much more tempting and sexually titillating to both the boy and the girl, right?
Absolutely.
The freshman in college, the sophomore in college, however you want to talk about it age-wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whichever milieu you want to consider here. But what I know is I am almost certain, no matter how strong in their faith a couple is, I very much doubt they make a conscious decision and stick to it that we're going to go into our wedding night never having even seen each other naked and checked out the merchandise before. I just think that would be ill-advised, no matter how much faith you have.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because, if you do that, then, but there is, those shows where, Married at First Sight.
Well,
or
that
whatever.
is crazy.
I mean,
nuts.
There's arranged marriages where they literally meet at the time they get married in certain countries.
Well, I'm sure that does happen, but I've had the privilege of talking to people who were in arranged marriages, and I'm not sure it's always that draconian, that you're not even allowed to see this person until you're walking down the aisle together. Oftentimes, especially in the modern world, even if the parents are arranging this marriage and that's how the culture flows and that's how they roll, they still kind of make sure that the two know each other, have had a chance to interact. I don't know if that's chaperoned or whatever. I don't know whether they're able to see each other naked, but I know it's not always necessarily such a black-white issue that I go from never having even seen you before to we're married. Boom. Right.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I was going a little extreme on that. However, you also brought up a good point. A lot of times with arranged marriages, when they're going out on dates, they tend to be chaperoned. So,
yes, right.
So they're not necessarily checking out the merchandise, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, even in very conservative cultures, that's the case, whether the couple gets to choose each other or not, that's still the case. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's boring to talk about arranged marriages.
Yeah.
That's just bad relationship talk, not just bad sex. And nobody cares anyway. None of these guys are probably listening to this show because they're about to be in an arranged marriage. Although I know there are lots of guys listening who have been in arranged marriages.
Of course.
Yeah. Or trying to make one work. Yeah. I'm going to, tip the hat to those guys who are listening. I do see you and I acknowledge you. But now for something completely different, as Monty Python would have said, I really hope it's obvious to everyone listening and to the entire human race in general that sex should be fun and exciting. And that perhaps brings up a question that I think is at least tangentially related, which is, what if we as men who are listening to the show feel like we better be, quote unquote, making love to a woman tenderly every time we have sex with her, or else we're somehow violating her or not being a nice guy? I mean, from my experience and my travels, Cyndi, sometimes women just want to be taken and ravished. And you see it even in television. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like that stems around communication and also feeling into her too.
Yeah.
And she gets to speak up and say, just take me, just, give it to me.
I don't talk about what happens in the bedroom with Emily and I often, but I think in general terms, most people would be shocked at how little tender lovemaking has happened over the last 18 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a function of trust and honesty and, attraction and passion.
I agree. When you said that, I was like, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, just like the whole, women will sometimes call it, well, he jackhammered me.
Yeah. Bad timing and kind of getting after it with too much enthusiasm too quickly. I think women are going to see a guy like that as, first of all, not understanding female anatomy. I mean, you can't just climb on top of a woman straight up and just start pounding away. It will potentially injure her. She has to be warmed up, vaginally, if nothing else. I mean, for physiological reasons. You know what I mean?
I do.
Of course you do.
And foreplay is important. And sometimes that can be underestimated in the throes of passion too.
Yeah. And I mean, communication even within the context of having sex and kissing while you have sex.
Yeah.
Now, those are two things you don't see a whole lot of in porn, by the way. You do.
Yeah.
But the idea of conversation and even laughing and kissing while you're having sex, mixing it up. I mean, a lot of guys are thinking, well, you just said there's no tender lovemaking. That sounds pretty tender there, McKay. Well, it's not like you spend the next however long you last doing the same thing without switching around not only the mood, but the position and what's actually going on. That's what makes it exciting and more of an adventure than, if you have two cold fishes in bed just kind of copulating, right?
Totally. And that's part of what, turns everybody on and makes it fun.
Yeah. Anything else that you think would contribute to bad sex that we haven't covered yet?
Well, being in your head and feeling like you need to perform a certain way is the thing. Or just, there was this movie I watched. I know I keep going back to the movies, but I feel like the opening scene was this man having sex with his girlfriend, and she remembered something and went to her phone really quick and wrote it down. Oh, I need this XYZ thing. And he goes, what? You're thinking about bread and we're having sex right now. So that would be a deal breaker. That would be a hell no. Don't do that.
Well, early on, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you've been married for a few years, this happens,
Yeah. It's like, oh, honey, I got to write this. I got to make sure I write this down.
All right. On a similar note, I don't know how this is similar, but for some reason it just rings as such. What if someone burps or farts during sex? What do you do?
Oh, man.
The woman will be absolutely mortified if she farts during sex.
Totally. But there's flatulence that can happen.
And men, I think we as guys, we should just be very casual and non-judgmental towards that if we want the sex to continue or ever happen again in that context. We have to be very gracious. We have to work on it.
Yes, we want to give her grace if that does happen. And if you've been together a while, there's laughter involved in that.
Well, for sure. But I'm talking about if the couple is trying to have sex and get better at it, like you said. And by the way, as far as one night stands go, these guys know I'm on record with this. I don't understand why you would want to test drive this ride and not, park it in your driveway for a while. I don't even understand one night stands. If I liked her enough to have sex with her, I should like her enough to want to get better at it after a while.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we called this episode the Bad Sex Survival Guide. I think we just talked about, in no uncertain terms, how to survive if she farts in bed. What about all these other elements? Are they survivable? How do you move on from what I'm going to term the inevitable and hopefully occasional negative experience or not so good experience? How do you survive it?
Well,
should you survive it?
It kind of depends on the relationship, right? It depends upon how well you know one another, if you're compatible in other areas, how important sex is to you too. So there's that.
And how little you take yourself so seriously and are so inside your head.
Exactly. There's that too. It's like, well, wait a second. Why don't we try this again? Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we take the mystery out of the bag? And then, you don't necessarily need to call it, oh, that was really bad, unless you both agree. you could say, well, hey, next time I feel like this would be good. Are you game to try that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And indeed, as you just alluded to, if both of you arrive at a similar conclusion that maybe we shouldn't do this again, it didn't work so well, then at least you arrived at the same conclusion together.
Right. It's almost like, if you have a really good friend of yours, that's maybe somebody of the opposite sex, and you've always had an attraction to them, and one time you guys just go for it and it's bad, then you can come back and say, okay, that didn't work.
Like it felt like having sex with my sister or something because we know each other too well and we've been friends too long. Okay. Yeah, I can't relate to that one myself, but sure. I can relate to situations where we did not have sex for so long and then one day it exploded and we're kind of left like a dog chasing a car that suddenly has caught the car. Like, now what?
Now what? And then there's disappointment at the end because you've had all of this buildup.
Well, I mean, the sex could even be good, but you're still saying at the end of it, what do we do from here? We've had this relationship that's been the way we've known our relationship to be for months or perhaps even years. And now we exploded in passion in a weak moment together. And obviously things have to change, or things did change, or maybe they don't have to change, but at least you have to talk about it.
Exactly. And maybe you keep doing it.
Maybe.
And keep growing that part of your relationship.
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel like people overthink this too.
Well, boom, there's your mic drop right there. The root cause of all bad sex, if you want my opinion, is overthinking it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Mic drop. There we go. Her name is Cyndi Olin. She is typically a dating coach for ladies, but also the occasional dating coach for men. Yeah. She's obviously very good at what she does. And when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Cyndi, CYNDI, you will be magically teleported to her website. And last time you had a really neat gift for the guys, Cyndi. Is it still there for them?
Yeah.
And for the guys who maybe don't immediately recall our last conversation together on this show, what's waiting for them there, Cyndi, exactly?
Yes, it's a guide to communicating with women and really getting her to open up.
Which may lead to bad sex.
It could lead to bad sex.
Or good sex.
It could lead to anything. So,
well, I had to go ahead and flex the ironic humor there, of course. But always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I love our conversations, and I know the guys do too. So thank you once again for the umpteenth time, Cyndi, for being on the show. And we can't wait to have you back.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was so much fun. I always love being here with you.
Yeah, time flew on this one. That's how I usually gauge whether a show is going to be one of the best lately or not, is if I feel like, wow, this has only been 10 minutes, but I look down and it's been like 40 or 45. And that's how I feel about this one. Yes.
And it's always fun with you, Scott. I could talk to you about so many different topics, and I'm always curious what you have to say, because you always have a different kink, so to speak.
Oh boy. There you go again. Yeah, this conversation, it couldn't have been boring. So, I mean, there's that. This one was a gimme. Hey, guys, check out mountaintoppodcast.com. If you haven't talked to me on the phone for 25 to 30 minutes for free, we can talk about whatever's on your mind, whatever it's going to take to get you in front of the kind of woman, hey, you won't have bad sex with. How about that? That alone is worth getting on my calendar to discuss. While you're there, please visit our wonderful sponsors, Origin in Maine, the Keyport, and Hero Soap. When you partake of any of the products from those fine sponsors, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get an additional 10% off. Also, there are free downloads for you. My book, Sticking Points Solved, is there for you. You can also check out the Women in AI program or the Yes and program. All that and more, including show notes for every episode, is there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.